Today I'll be giving you guys my ranking for all of the Universal Invisible Man movies, so let's get started. Hey everybody, my name is Justin. I love to watch movies. If you guys love to watch movies too, you guys are in the right spot. Make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and click that bell notification for more up and coming videos. Today I'll be ranking all of the Universal Invisible Man movies. There are plenty of Invisible Man movies and movies based off of H.G. Wells' novel. Movies like Hollow Man and Memoirs of an Invisible Man, those are all from different companies, and if I did a ranking for Invisible Man movies, there'd be so many different ones, foreign movies, just a bunch of different ones. So I only wanted to include the Universal classic monsters. So we had ones from like the 30s and the 40s, and then the newest one, which is from Universal, which is kind of like the reboot that they're doing for the new Invisible Man movies. So I'll be including that one in this list. I'll also be including The Visible Man, The Visible Man Returns, The Visible Woman, The Invisible Agent, The Visible Man's Revenge, and then the Abbott and Costello meets The Invisible Man movie as well. So make sure to leave your list down below. Have you seen all of them and how would you rank them? Let me know in the comment section down below. So coming in at number 7 is The Invisible Woman. This film was released in 1940 and was the third Universal Invisible Man movie. And this is more of a screwball comedy, where the first two Invisible Man movies felt like a horror film. This was a more upbeat, eccentric, fun film. The idea of an invisible person kind of lost its charm after the second film, and the idea of it and the initial shock feels a little bit repetitive in this movie. There are some gimmicks that kind of go away from the initial, I guess, setup from the Visible Man movie. It's more of a comedy. There are times where people enter this device that can change their voice as well. It also changes them to be invisible. So it kind of changes certain things that we got from the first movie, where it's like a potion. This is a device that turns them invisible. Nonetheless, I think The Invisible Woman is a fun film. I like the character involved, Kitty, and how she and her storyline within the movie. It was a bit of a shock to see two kind of horror movies and then go to a more comedy aspect for The Invisible Man. Because I've always viewed The Invisible Man as like a horror movie icon, and it was weird to see a comedy thrown into there. Coming at number 6 is The Invisible Agent. Invisible Agent was released in 1942 and was centered around Frank Raymond, who was also Frank Griffin, the grandson of the original Invisible Man. But in this movie, they refer to him as Frank Griffin, not Jack Griffin, so I'm not sure what was going on with that. But this movie mixed a war atmosphere with the horror elements from The Invisible Man. The Invisible Man is entering war while being invisible and trying to investigate things, and it has a good blend of those horror elements with some war elements as well. It feels more of a war film. It's got some decent special effects and some decent acting within it. I think this movie definitely feels contained within its setting. It doesn't explore a lot. I did prefer the war story rather than the Invisible Man story in this movie. And it does have some comedy thrown in it as well, but I think it has a good blend of different genres. Coming at number 5 is The Invisible Man's Revenge. This film was released in 1944 and had a good initial story, a good setup for our character, who was framed and is trying to prove his innocence. There was a lot of detail into this character's story and setting up his story. It really took its time to introduce the invisibility, and I think that this film kind of brought back that same elements and that same style to the first film with this movie. I felt like it was lacking from some of the other Invisible Man movies. The initial shock that people were experiencing when seeing something being invisible was there, where this man was seeking shelter, and this doctor had invisible dogs and animals, and this man was shocked at seeing everything, and he became invisible. They also changed some things about how to become invisible, how to be visible again. I like some of that aspect in the movie. I did enjoy the story, and I did enjoy how people kind of reacted to people being invisible. I felt like some of that was lacking from some previous films. Overall, The Invisible Man's Revenge was the last film I watched for the Invisible Man movies. I don't think it's the last one in order of these movies, but I think I ended up on a good note because I did enjoy the movie. Coming in number 4 is Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man. This movie was released in 1951 and featured the comedic duo of Abbott and Costello, who also met some other Universal classic monsters along the way. Now they stop and meet the Invisible Man. This has a fun story that I thought was just a blast. They meet the Invisible Man and Lou ends up becoming a boxer, and the Invisible Man's there to help him with a fight, and they have to throw the fight, and the Invisible Man wants to be part of the fight. It's a fun story. Abbott and Costello are a great comedic duo. I've seen a few movies with them in it, and I always enjoy their kind of slapstick style of humor, and it works within this movie where they are interacting with the Invisible Man and kind of stumbling over him because they don't see him. I think it's a lot of fun. And one thing I did notice in this movie and plenty of other movies, people that are invisible have a drinking problem. There are plenty of times where someone is watching the Invisible Man and they see them drink, and they kind of have to cover that up by them drinking. It happens in this movie, happens in other movies. All the invisible people have a drinking problem, and I thought it was a bit overused within this movie since it was released after all those other movies. But I think this has a fun plot. It has for a lot of fun moments. Now, if it was an Invisible Man movie just by itself, it would have been an odd comedy. Since we have that comedic duo in this movie, it makes it for a fun film. Coming in at number 3 is The Invisible Man Returns. This film was released in 1940, the same year as The Invisible Woman. And I think it continued the initial horror story of The Invisible Man. I still felt like scenes were very shocking. It had a good story. There was a lot more within the story than the first movie which was released in 1933. I felt like there was more of a story to be interested in. I felt like there was more for the characters to do. And they tried to recreate some of the special effects, and I don't think it came off as exciting as that first film. But nonetheless, I think it was an interesting story. It definitely took its time. I felt like there was more of a story for the character within this film compared to the 1933 film. And I still think it's a really good film. Coming at number 2 is the 1933 film, The Invisible Man. Now, The Invisible Man is one of my favorite Universal classic monsters. And yes, it is a really good horror film. I think that the character in The Invisible Man, Jack Griffin, is very sinister, and the idea of someone being invisible definitely worked in this film. I always imagined what it would have been like to see this film in 1933 and seeing it in theaters and thinking to myself, how do they pull that off? Because it definitely does work for this time. And the way that this invisibility works is that it slowly makes you insane. And we have a really good progression of this character who is trying to lock himself up in this hotel room while he figures things out and is slowly going mad. And that progression really works in this movie to make it feel like a true horror film of someone that is going mad and wants to have a bunch of power and try to take over the world. And this is one of the few Invisible Man movies that feels like a horror film. It feels like it is terrifying. They do their best at making the Invisible Man terrifying and having him in the background and you really don't know where he is. It's a scary idea, and it definitely works within this movie. For being released in 1933, I think some of the special effects are outstanding. I think that the progression for the character is really good. I really enjoy the character and the story that is presented for him. It's heartbreaking at times because of the things that he is dealing with, but it has that good horror vibe going for it, and watching him turn slowly mad and him fighting against people and them not knowing where he is. It's a good idea, and I think that the H.G. Wells story is groundbreaking, and it was translated nicely on the big screen. Coming at number 1 is the newest Invisible Man movie, which really caught me by surprise. I was really looking forward to it, but I was not expecting it to be this good. Now, it is a lot different from any of the Invisible Man movies, and spoiler for anybody who has not seen the Invisible Man movie, spoilers in 3, 2, 1, it's the suit. It is a suit that makes him invisible, which I thought was going to happen. It seems honestly realistic compared to a potion that could make you realistic. It's an updated style to the invisibility for the character, and it definitely does work. Elizabeth Moss gives a really good performance in this movie, truly haunting opening that tells you a lot about her relationship with her boyfriend without actually saying much, and it definitely does work. Sets up that tone nicely very early on. It's a chilling movie, and the idea of him being in the room and you not knowing where he is definitely does work. You can kind of try to hear things to see where he is, and you get an idea of where he is by where the camera is pointed at, and it is truly haunting. And some of the scenes that he is involved in are so unexpected. They really catch you by surprise. There's a lot of twists and turns within this movie. The tone is always dark, it's always sinister. It's a really intense film that you stay on the edge of your seat. I was not expecting this film to surpass the 1933 film, and a lot of people will enjoy the 1933 film and always keep it at their number one, but I really did love the new Invisible Man movie, and that's why I'm going to put it at number one. So there you guys have all the Universal Invisible Man movies ranked worst to best. Let me know how you rank them in the comment section down below. My name is Just Watch Movies, and you guys stay classy, YouTube.